Developing musicianship online.
Hello and welcome back to DM Online. Last session we created a score using Musescore. We exported it as a MIDI file and we put it into Garageband where we set up our ensemble sounds through the different options in the MIDI components. This week we're going to throw some more processing power at it using automations and using compressors and EQs and really work to get our mix sparkling so that it sounds like a professional product. So let's go. When the brass play the sustained hits, what I'm actually thinking was that it needs a tack and then it needs to pull away substantially and then it needs to swell back up again. We call it sforzando in music. So in essence we kind of have this shape, then we pull down and then we pull back up again like that. Now we don't want it totally to disappear, so maybe around 18, and the other brass should do the same. So things like sforzando are quite a specific sound, and even like some people prefer to have the quiet part be a little bit extended and then swell at the last minute, and other people like to swell straight away. So I'm going to try this so that late swell. Now I have to do it on the other side. You've seen how I do it, so I'm going to go off camera and fix up the rest of the swells, and we'll come back and have a listen. Okay, I'm back. And I've managed to now set up the various swells that happen. They're not in the organ anymore. The organ wasn't quite working for the swell moment, so I left that as the same dynamic. I've repositioned the spoken dialogue. I have chosen a couple of different pop horn options. As a brass player, I'm still not sold on these horns, but it's synthesizer land, so like I don't think as a brass player, any brass player would ever really like the sound of synthesizer brass. So maybe at a later date I'll have to record some actual brass. So we've got down the bottom, you may recall I said that if you get stuck down a rabbit hole with your sounds, then you go down the bottom and you click on the menu item. It takes you back to the root. The bottom of the root directory has this legacy sound set, which is different from the other sound set, and it's got a lot more options for pop horns and things like that. So I've sort of played around with that a bit. What I am finding now that it's all together and I've got some dynamic control and things like that, is that stuff like the drums needs more drive. Now, if I was in Musescore, I don't have the flexibility of really pushing my mix. So I'm going to take advantage of some of the auto settings to find a more driving, like punchy drum set sound. If I'm not getting the punch out of the EQ, then I'm going to go and compress the sound. And if you're not sure what I mean by compression, go back to the episode about compression and you'll learn all about it. But I can certainly get more kick and more snare sting if I compress the drums some more. And I could do the same with the bass to give it that percussive sound that you get in funk. So again, this is going to be a little bit of fiddling around to get the sound mix the way I like it. You can see from this what the possibilities are, but I'm going to go off camera, mix it down properly, and then I'll show you what the possibilities are with this Musescore MIDI file and the tools available in Garageband. I'll be back soon. So I've spent a bit of time off camera getting this all tighter and balancing it out. I've provided you with some time lapse there of the actual process. It's a long process, it's not a quick thing to do. But I'll give you sort of an overview of the things that have changed since I was off camera. I found by taking it off the SoCal drum kit and using a different drum kit, it had more snap and gave it a bit more of that funk drive that I was looking for. But it still needed some EQ, which I used a preset, and then I boosted the bass drum. I took a little bit of the frequency out between the bass drum and the snare to try and separate the sounds out a little bit more, and then gave the snare a little bit of a boost. So there's probably more boost in the drum EQ than I would generally go for, but when you're EQing a drum kit that's already been EQ'd, I think you've got to sort of go through a delicate balancing act to get that right. I've added compression. Their compression adds a lot of volume, so you'll see I've actually got -1 gain. When you go to the default on Type R type drum kit, you actually wind up with about 8 decibel of gain. I'm not looking for that kind of gain, I'm looking for attack, so that gave me attack without changing the volume too much. I stuck with the same bass guitar, but I've EQ'd it, and the compression I think was already turned on as a pre requirement of that particular setup. The jazz organ, all I've done is add a little bit of reverb. So a lot of the instruments come kind of pre-packaged with a bit of reverb already in them. It just brings the instrument into the room mix a bit more. So if you can imagine a space, if you don't give it reverb, it's almost like you're plugging a dry signal into a whole bunch of wet signals. So by giving it a little bit of reverb, it just kind of allows it to meld a bit more with the other sounds around it. Especially with the horn sounds, because the horn sounds automatically, if you go to pop horns and stuff like that, they already have a lot of reverb mixed into them. I actually pulled the reverb back and I've changed a couple of these horn sounds. You'll see the swells mixed in there and the automation. At this point in time I haven't automated anything else. I've given it a little trim to realign the entry of the time after the jingle, and that's about it at this point. But already, if we compare it to what was coming out of Musescore, this is a whole different sound. It sounds a lot more entertaining to listen to. Musescore, it's a bit flat when it comes out of the processor. So all that's left now is to have a quick listen. So let's go.
DM, developing musicianship online. Developing musicianship online.
There you go. Okay, so that's how we take a notation software and bring it into this environment and then make the most out of the two pieces of software rather than just relying wholly on GarageBand. I hope that's been useful and giving you some ideas on some further creations. Next time I'm going to dig further into Musescore and address how to actually operate Musescore effectively, and I'll let you in on some of the issues that I find with the program. So until next time, I'll see you again. Bye bye.
DM, developing musicianship online.